The Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representatives Burns.
Here.
Shannon.
Present.
Breen.
Present.
Rogers.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Pies.
Present.
Zorn.
Here.
Paquette.
Here.
Bizat.
Present.
Begol.
Here.
Preston. Mr. Chair, you have 12 members. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I need a motion to adopt and approve the minutes from our previous meeting. That motion is made by Representative Shannon, and seeing no objection, the meeting minutes are adopted. With that, we're going to first be taking up House Bill 4861, which we previously heard testimony on. There's been a great deal of dialogue with the sponsor and other stakeholders on this, and we do have a substitute that needs to be taken up. I will just remind folks that we did hear testimony on this on September the 6th. So with that, we have an H1 substitute for House Bill 4861. I have a motion from Representative Rogers to adopt the H1 substitute. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Representatives Burns.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Breen.
Yep.
Rogers.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Zorn.
Yes.
Paquette.
Yes.
Bizat.
Yes.
Begol.
Yes.
Preston. Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas. The sub is adopted.
So now we have Representative Snyder here to provide testimony on the H1 substitute. Representative, you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald and members of the committee, and thank you for accommodating this afternoon and doing this in the afternoon and understanding the time frame that we are on to get this legislation through to make some good things happen for Kids Food Basket in Muskegon. What we have in front of you that you just adopted is the H1 sub for House Bill 4861. As we discussed a few weeks ago, House Bill 4861 is a land conveyance bill. Simply stated, it grants permission for the County of Muskegon to sell a piece of property located at 97 East Apple Avenue in the city of Muskegon to Kids Food Basket, a West Michigan nonprofit dedicated to increasing access to healthy food for children and families. The version before you today is not substantially different than what was previously presented, but it represents significant work from our office, the Department of Technology Management and Budget in the County of Muskegon over the last month. The state of Michigan will release the right of reentry and deed restrictions on the Apple Avenue property. In return, the County of Muskegon will pay the state fair market value as agreed to by both the county and state for the property in question. This will allow the sale to Kids Food Basket and lays the groundwork for subsequent redevelopment of the property. I hope to have earned your support and vote for this important legislation that greatly affects the kids and children of Muskegon County.
Thank you, Representative, for your testimony and for the follow-up from our September 6th testimony. Members, do we have any questions? Seeing none, I will take a motion to report House Bill 4861 as sub H1 with recommendation. That motion is made by Representative Breen. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Representatives Burns.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Breen.
Aye.
Rogers.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Zorn.
Yes.
Paquette.
No.
Bizat.
Yes.
Begol.
Yes.
Preston. Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas, 1 nay, 0 passes. House Bill 4861 is reported with recommendation to substitute H1.
With that, we'll move on to our next and final order of business. Oh, excuse me. I had one card to read in. I apologize. Neil D'Souza on House Bill 4861, not wishing to speak, neutral on the bill from DTMB. My apologies, members. With that, we'll move on to our next and final order of business. That is House Bill 5074, another Representative Snyder bill. We do have Rep. Snyder here again to testify, and you may begin when you are ready.
Well, thank you again, Chair and committee members, for testifying on House Bill 5074. Also joining today on Zoom to speak after I conclude my remarks is Peter Wills, Director of Strategic Initiatives from the City of Muskegon. This bill is a simple technical fix to a relatively simple problem. It allows for the retroactive approval of a smart zone. In 2005, a smart zone was established in the city of Muskegon, located at the Muskegon Innovation Hub at the former site of the Teledyne Continental Motors factory. The smart zone was set for a term of 15 years with an allowed 5-year extension beyond 2020. The extension was approved in 2015, but it still needed ratification from MEDC and Treasury. In 2015, the city of Muskegon applied for an extension which was received, but by error was never signed. Since early 2022, there has been significant revitalization of the Smart Zone through a mixed-use redevelopment project known as Harbor 31. The project includes a residential development and senior living complex. The investment in the first phase is estimated at $15.2 million. This multi-use water project located along the shores of Lake Michigan is key to the continued redevelopment of, or Muskegon Lake, of our downtown. During the development and construction of Harbor 31, it was discovered that the Smart Zone was not successfully renewed. Consequently, with discussions with the Department of Treasury and MEDC, this bill was the solution to that snafu. So this bill would make it so that the retroactive approval of the 5-year extension may occur after the capture for that additional period, provided the other requirements of this portion of the bill are satisfied. So with that, I would like from the City of Muskegon, Pete Wills, to maybe give a little bit further explanation from the city's
Yeah,
side.
without objection. Mr. Wills, thank you for joining us via Zoom. You may begin when you are ready.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to provide comments to you and the members. I appreciate Representative Snyder taking up this technical fix. There was a prior staff who had requested in 2015 an extension beyond 2020, as Representative explained, for us to allow us to continue to capture state and local increment property tax revenue to pay down significant bond finances in order to get some buildings built within the smart zone, and we continued to depend on that TIF revenue to pay those bonds down. Within the last couple of months, we had received correspondence from MEDC and Treasury regarding our continued capture into 2021 and 2022. I don't think either agency really had confirmation on whether or not we had authorization to continue to capture. We were under the impression that the request in 2015 would likely be approved. And so in the absence of really further clarifying direction in the TIF Act, it was recommended by Treasury that we pursue this legislative retroactive fix. So we appreciate the opportunity to work with both agencies and Representative Snyder for taking up this bill. So rather than paying back into 2021 and 2022, these taxing jurisdictions, we're looking at a couple $100,000 that we would otherwise not prefer to have to repay if we're not able to get this retroactive approval.
Mr. Wills, thank you very much for your testimony today. I do have just one question. This would be fine for either of you to answer, which is, recognizing that this was I believe a declared snafu. Have we identified how the snafu occurred and how this how we might be able to remedy that or keep this from occurring in the future? Or do we believe that there would be opportunity for this in the future to occur?
Yeah, there was a process that back in 2015 that I think the statute provided for an additional 5-year extension of TIF capture. And so prior city staff communicated to the MEDC. The MEDC concurred with our request. The request was approved by our city commission. That request went from MEDC leadership to Kevin Clinton, who used to act as the state treasurer. And I don't believe Treasury had signed off. I don't know what kind of activity they did or did not take. So it was really between both agencies as far as recognizing our request to have that extension approved from 2020 through 2025. It was really a paperwork issue, I believe.
Yeah, in hopes that this doesn't happen again for other smart zones throughout the state, I hope that you'll certainly make this known to those departments that we need to make sure that this is not a reoccurrence. So
yes, and the retail and commercial development project that Representative Snyder referenced has an approved brownfield plan that is to begin in 2025 and was approved locally under the idea that the smart zone would cease to capture in 2025. So that brownfield plan is really predicated in the TIF tables on the continued approval and hopeful ratification of this retroactive issue.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. I do have two members with questions. Just keep being cognizant of time. Representative Paquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I was also going to comment on a little bit more explanation around this snafu as the terminology, because one of the least possible or least, I guess, taken approaches would be to change state law, for some of these things. One of the things that, on my orientation a couple years back, was like oversight of office is one of the main things that we can do. We use our office for oversight to look into these pieces. So changing law is the last, resort normally. So in terms of this, you use the term that this is a technical fix, and increasing, I guess, a retroactive approval of a 33% increase in time frame. I don't see that as a technical fix. How did you come up with that number? And then also, is this type of snafu happening elsewhere? If you could expand on that, and also like what specifically occurred in the breakdown between all these individuals that you mentioned.
Well, I don't know if any representatives from Treasury or MEDC are in the room, but there is a statutory process for communities who had an approved smart zone or had an approved smart zone to be able to have an amended plan, and that approval needed to receive ratification from MEDC and Treasury. But first, you, the local unit, had to make that request, and you, the local unit, had to have that approved by your city commission. We fulfilled those steps. Both agencies have the correspondence that we had requested back in 2015. But again, it needed approval by MEDC, and then there's some correspondence that I think both agencies have that was sent to the former Treasury Director, Treasurer, and that, for whatever reason, hadn't been signed, and acknowledgement of our request had not been received. So really, it is a paperwork issue, but we were following state statute that would have allowed us to continue that 5-year capture process.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. Representative Rogers.
Thank you. One of my questions was how the brownfield program interacts with this. So can you walk us through the timing? Is there already a brownfield plan in place, or that's coming next? Or can you talk about the timeline?
So there's an approved brownfield plan for the project that's called Harbor 31 retail commercial project. That TIF capture is to begin in 2025, and that date is only relevant because of this former smart zone tax increment process that was approved years ago. So that smart zone process allowed local units to capture state and local taxes up to that 15-year period for certain bonding purposes in order to finance those public facilities. In our case, Grand Valley, the city of Muskegon had a partnership, continues to have a partnership with Grand Valley for the construction of what was called the former Michigan Alternative and Renewable Energy Center. And so the bonds that the city had taken out, we were depending on the TIF revenue and continued to depend on the TIF revenue to pay those bonds down. So that was just a process that we followed through that was allowed by the state.
And thank you. And then my follow-up question is school aid being used in this project or not?
If it is, I believe it's being held harmless. That has not been communicated to us by Treasury and MEDC that that's as a consequence, but the act allowed for the capture of state and local school taxes. So if it was, then MPS is being held harmless.
Thanks. If someone could follow up with that information, I'd greatly appreciate it.
With that, I do have a couple of cards to read in, and one of which is wishing to speak. I do have Amanda West from the Department of Treasury in support of the bill wishing to come forward and speak. I'd like to invite you forward at this time to provide your insights as well.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Amanda West. I'm the Legislative Director for the Department of Treasury. I think a lot of the background has been shared already, but I can provide some additional details on the quote-unquote snafu. It appears that MEDC reached out to us a few months ago, and they were going back through the paperwork. I'm presuming that it was because of the amendments that the Muskegon folks were looking at in the future, and realized in the paperwork that the previous treasurer in 2015 had never actually signed the agreement. It's a signature on a piece of paper, and there's plenty of evidence that everyone was on board with the agreement, and their intent was to move forward with the extension. It was just a signature that was missing on a piece of paper. Again, 2015, best we can tell, it was a transition between two treasurers, between Treasurer Clinton and Treasurer Quarry at that time, and we're assuming that the paperwork somehow got lost. So we understand from MEDC and have no concerns with the fact that the Muskegon Lakeshore has been working as if they had an approved amendment, and this legislation would allow the current treasurer to sign that agreement, saying that essentially that it was okay for them, and it was our intent for them to be under this agreement for the last 5 years.
Thank you, Ms. West. I would also just like to read in our final card here, we do have not wishing to speak and in support of the bill, Brad Hefner from the MEDC. I think also just demonstrating that we have had a great deal of departmental input and recognizing that this is a clean and straightforward path forward for the city of Muskegon and the smart zone there. So seeing no further questions, I will take a motion to report House Bill 5074 with recommendation. That motion is made by Representative Burns. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Representatives Burns,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Breen,
Aye.
Rogers,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Pies,
Yes.
Zorn,
Pass.
Paquette,
No.
Bizat,
Pass.
Bagol,
Pass.
Preston.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, I have 8 yeas, 3 nays. Oh, wait. Preston, what was your vote again?
Pass.
Pass, okay, sorry. Let me start again. We have 8 yeas, 2 nays, 3 passes. House Bill 5074 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you all for your time and attention here today. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone making the effort to be here this afternoon. And with no further business before the committee and without objection, the meeting is adjourned.